Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Writing Docs podcast, unedited, where we will be talking about AI in writing. What's the good? What's the bad? What's the ugly? Here's our true thoughts. We have our boss here, Pam Hurley, our founder, our leader, and Sarah.
Let us pay homage to Pam.
Yeah, whatever.
Homage to Pam. And we have Sarah, who newly has gotten her PhD. Congratulations, Dr.
Congratulations.
Adams.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yay. And then we have me, Elizabeth Press.
I was going to say, we have 3 PhDs here whose knowledge probably wouldn't fill a thimble, but anyway, we are PhDs.
Thank you.
Joking, I'm joking.
I love to see the confidence our leader has in us. Well, really, you have no one to blame but yourself because you've molded us. So.
Yeah, right. Blame me.
Our flaws are yours and our wins are yours as well.
Exactly. I'll take it all.
We'll see if we have some different thoughts on AI. Today, we're going to be talking about AI in terms of writing, and not the creative kind where there's some lawsuits, but the business industry, pharmaceuticals, technology, engineering. Let's talk about what I find interesting first is the concept of AI as a tool. We hear that some people debate whether it's a tool or if it takes away the thinking. What I find interesting is this idea of tools has gone back ever since the invention, essentially, of persuasion, of writing, of communication.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Good point. Good point.
Back to old school, like Greece, philosophical Western thought. The founder was Aristotle. But even before him, yes, there was a pre-Aristotle. There were some people that felt like rhetoric, which is the art of persuasion, of communication, was a tool. And some people, such as Plato, were only those who understand should have the tool. Only those who are truly intelligent. Now, who that was, Plato got to decide. Only those who go after the ultimate truth should have it. And then everybody else is just a plebeian mess that shouldn't be allowed to have it.
It's the same with visuals. And this was some of my research for my dissertation, actually, the history of visuals, where we think of visuals in communication as starting with the printing press and things like that. But same thing, it was not just reserved for the people who knew everything. We see drawings on cave walls. We see people charting the night sky. And it's not necessarily the Greek scholars or the Renaissance folks who have the market on that. So to your point, Elizabeth, I think there have always been tools. There have always been tools that we have used. And just like anything, as many amazing Renaissance artists as we know about today, there were probably some bad ones too that we've never heard of. Because like any tool or medium that you use, there is good, bad, and ugly.
And also, there's always been fear around the tools, right? With rhetoric, the sophists thought, hey, let's just teach everyone the tool. Plato's over there going, oh, no, everything will end if you do that. And Aristotle was nicer about it. Sophists said, give everyone the tool. Let's see what happens. Same thing with the printing press, too, right? Mm-hmm. Only certain people should be allowed to read. So this is a common theme throughout human history. We fear.
And you disagree with that statement, right, Elizabeth?
I think they're both sides, right? No, I'm a fan of the printing press. A big fan of the printing press.
Just checking.
For new tools, you have to figure out, okay, where these fears are, what are some benefits, how do we use this? Pam, what are your thoughts on that?
I think part of the problem with AI is that it's a shiny new object, and I'm not anti-AI at all. I think the problem is that there's been so many people, businesses, individuals, etc., that have jumped on it without understanding the long-term consequences of it. And to me, that's the biggest problem, because it's a thought partner, it's this, it's that, it's the other. Is it? It's not. It can't think. So I'm unclear about why people call it a thought partner, because all it's doing is just an algorithm, right? It's just giving people information that other people have inputted or that it's gathered from whatever. So I just, my biggest concern about AI is that if people see it or believe that it is a substitute for writing, we all know that writing is thinking on paper, writing is problem solving. And my concern is if you take that away, that ability to solve a problem on paper via writing, right, to work through that problem intellectually, that you're going to see a laziness, if you will, or maybe laziness isn't the right word, but a softening of critical thought in other areas of people's lives. And that's my real concern is, because we all know this. People hate writing. A lot of the professionals we work with, they detest it. They don't want to do it. And so they're very excited about, passing it off to AI because they really do believe that that's going to alleviate the writing pain for them. When the fact of the matter is they may be actually hurting themselves because they're not taking the time to work through the writing problem.
That's a good point. And there's so many tools that we use that we have to think critically about to use them effectively. I can't just say, I want to get to a restaurant and put that into my GPS without getting a little more specific, or I want to get to my destination. Well, yeah, it might take me there via freeway, or it could take me mountain roads, or I've even just as a joke put into my GPS countries overseas. And of course, it takes me right through the ocean. It doesn't tell me to get on a plane or anything like that. So I think like any tool, we have to use critical thinking skills. We can't let it do our thinking for us.
I think that also gives me a great lead into what can it do? What are some pros? And we can also talk about some cons, but what are some benefits of AI? Because what is it other than the shiny new toy? I think one is it gives accessibility to information. Suddenly, we have access to all these different organizations that have had their stuff, whether willingly or unwillingly, put into the machine and become part of the database, where now we can ask questions. I found this to be very beneficial with regard to medical issues. Instead of having to read everything from Cleveland Clinic, from Johns Hopkins, everyone, I can put into the AI saying, what is this condition? How do you treat it? And it gets it for me. Now, for businesses, that's great when you have a database of documents that you can put into it. It's closed system, and it can go find the patterns and the trends real quickly and go through that information where you don't have to read all those reports. I will say, though, I talked to a bunch of rocket scientists, won't say who, but they were genuinely rocket scientists recently, where they used the AI specifically for that. And they said it still gets it wrong. So that's something to keep in mind. Have you guys had experience with using the AI to go through a bunch of information?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are definitely some good uses for it. Sure. I mean, MJ, I was putting together a list for our sales guy to make a trip and do some drop-offs, and it, what's the best route? What's the best? And so it did that. It did that very well. My concern is that I don't know if people are wasting more time reviewing information and hoping that it's correct versus, knowing if I have a writer on my team, a professional on my team who's writing a report, chances are really good that the information that person is inputting is correct. And all I have to do then is review it for readability or content, whatever the case may be. With AI, to me, the problem becomes not only do I have to worry about whether the information is correct, but I would imagine in some cases that the review process becomes harder because I then have to worry about not only the correctness of the information, but is the information valid and that kind of thing. I just saw a post from a woman on LinkedIn, and she was writing her dissertation, and a lot of the information that she was getting from a reputable source, the citations were incorrect. So we all know how hard it is to write a dissertation. And her university's response was, it's incumbent upon you to know if these citations are correct. Well, back in the day, and I mean, it's been years since I wrote my dissertation, there was never that fear. I knew if I went to a reputable source that the information was going to be correct and the citations were going to be correct, and I didn't have to worry about any of that. So it seems to me we may be weaving a web that may eventually get us into trouble and create more work for us.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting you mentioned that, Pam, because Sarah had an interesting interaction with AI in her dissertation too.
I did. I worked very hard on it and turned it over to the graduate school for the final formatting, the final approval, and everything like that. They ran it through their AI system, and it came back as a 25% match for AI. And
that's ridiculous.
I absolutely freaked out because I have the text where I sent to my advisor, I promise I wrote every word. And she said, I know. She said, what happens is that a lot of AI tools look for patterns and sentence structure. And if you're a good writer, it assumes that you must have used AI.
Well, there was just a woman on LinkedIn who posted about her high school daughter, straight A student, writes an essay. The teacher runs her essay through AI. AI said that it's AI generated. The girl gets a 0 on the essay, and the mom's like, what in the world? She did not use AI. They even ran the Constitution through it, and AI came back and said it was 99% AI generated. So,
unfortunately, they said that happens frequently enough that they know to run it again and looking for how much of this is just sentence structure that is similar to academic writing.
But my point is, I think that you're making the job harder by having to run it through AI multiple times instead of just, I have a professional on my team and this is how he or she writes and I can review that instead of trying to distinguish between, is this AI or is it not AI? And, it's just, to me, it's just kind of like the Emperor's New Clothes. It makes zero sense to me.
And there's a lot of times too. I'm sorry, Pam, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh no, I was done.
There's a lot of times too where AI can be a tool in summarizing and checking things and helping you as a thought partner think through different ways to communicate information and that sort of thing. But then there's times when it gets it completely wrong. And Elizabeth, another example that I have was one of my doctoral classes was on AI and the ethical uses of AI, as many universities struggle with how are we going to build policies and incorporate those into curriculum. And one of our assignments was an experiment where we asked AI to summarize an article, and we did not look at the AI response. And then we, as doctoral students, summarized the article independently and then to compare the two. And I decided to have a little fun with it. I asked my chat GPT if I could name it Manny. It said something to me like, sure, Manny, go ahead. And I was like, no, you're Manny. It was really confused. But as far as summarizing the article, totally missed the point of the article, missed the main points, missed the overall thesis of what the author was saying. It was summarized nicely, beautifully in a nice paragraph essay, but it was not representative at all of what the author was getting across. And that to me was eye-opening.
It is. We have an FDA piece that we use to show clients sometimes. And it's one of these excerpts. It's just, there's no premise, there's no logic, there's nothing, right? And so you run it through Chat GPT and they rearrange the sentences, but it's still missing the main point, right? So it's like, I did it. It's different. It's kind of like it reminds me of the client you worked with a couple of weeks ago. And instead of working on a breakout themselves, they ran it through AI. Was it better? No. The other thing is it was faster.
That was all because they didn't want to do the work.
Right. And that's the problem. It's this idea of faster equals better when faster doesn't necessarily equal better. So, I mean, to me, there's a trade-off. If good enough, I mean, if it's like, this is good enough to go, sure, fine. But if you're focused on readability, which is what our entire curriculum is based on, then ChatGTP or Copilot, they're not going to get you there, because it's just, I'm going to rearrange, but they can't think about, because they don't think, but they don't know, who you're writing for. Even if you said, I'm writing for a decision maker, they don't do that deep dive. Human beings do that. So I think it's a fallacy to believe that Chat GPT or Copilot or any of these other AIs is going to make the document more readable. It's not. It can't. It will make it different, and it might save you some time, but it's not going to make it more readable. If it's not more readable, then it's probably not going to accomplish its goal. And that's the other thing. You have to be able to measure success. So if you're getting the documents out faster, are those documents achieving the goal? Is it resulting in more sales, or whatever the case may be, quicker submissions, or whatever the case may be? Those are the things that people aren't measuring. It's just, it's faster equals better.
And for those in our audience who may not know what readability is, Pam, can you define readability for us real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Elizabeth. So readability is just research based on how readers read. And it's very simple. We know that readers look for patterns in writing. They want to understand what the premise is very, very quickly. They're looking for themes, or looking for a thread within the document itself. They're looking for a beginning, a middle, and an end that is logical and that makes sense. And there's scholars that do research on this, believe it or not, that spend their lives working on readability. And that's what we focus on in our curriculum. And that's all readability is. So again, a lot of companies, it's faster, but it's not more readable. And you need to measure whether the document is achieving the goal.
And often I think folks put in content, they get a nice, neat little paragraph, but it sounds more like some of the scripts from Bridgerton or Downton Abbey or some of these shows from the late 1800s, early 1900s, rather than plain language. And I know plain language is a huge part of readability, because we don't want our readers to have to jump through mental hoops to understand what we're trying to tell them. It needs to be more direct than that. And that's part of this concept of readability that we talk about. Pam, why is plain language so important? A lot of folks, I think, are afraid of plain language coming across as too informal or unprofessional. Why is that?
Right. They feel like plain language is, and I have this conversation with participants and have for 35 years. Well, I'm dumbing it down. You're not dumbing it down. You're simplifying it. There's not a reader on the planet, unless you're in academia, which is a whole nother discussion that we're not going to get into today. But most readers want to be able to look at a document, read the document quickly and easily, get through it, and understand what they're supposed to do, whether that is to make a decision, whether that's to take a psychological action, whatever the case may be. And plain language helps us achieve those goals, along with other things. But I agree with you, Sarah. People love to put in this, pompous language or big words or whatever the case may be, because they want to sound smart. And the quickest and easiest way to sound smart is to simplify so that your reader can understand the information very, very quickly. That's the best way to appear smart, because you understand who you're writing for and you understand what their needs are. Because at the end of the day, all the writer cares about is themselves. They don't care about you at all. So that's it. And that's what a lot of writers tend to forget, is they think it's about them when it's not.
I always joke with clients.
Go ahead, Sarah.
I always joke with clients, it's kind of like if I said to you all, friends, we're on the cusp of a brief respite. And they all sort of look at me. I said, what did I actually just say?
Yes.
So people are saying, they put in the chat, it's almost time to take a break. I'm like, yeah. So why didn't I just say that? And that's where I see light bulbs go off. Yeah.
That's a good example. I like that example. That's a good one.
Sarah, I want to go back to something you said about the Bridgerton thing. What comes out of AI? Why does it sound like that? Why is it that as we as humans can pick out what's AI written oftentimes? We know when it's AI, it feels yucky to us. One of the reasons why is because when they first started developing all the AI, they were the only industry really, other than judicial, that went to all the linguists and said, we have jobs for you. Linguists, they love mapping out sentences. I loved it. I loved it in college, and this is one reason.
Oh God,
Pam hates
awful.
it. I love it.
Sarah
And
just got a migraine just hearing that sentence. Just saying.
and I should explain what mapping out sentences means. It means that you can actually take each word in a sentence and show its role. And it's essentially math for English people. I loved it. I didn't go into it because I know it's scary, because there were no jobs at the time apart from AI. AI was starting to develop all the way back then, and they based it on those things. The problem is that the sentence structures that were put in are based on proper grammar and what academics felt, because that's where you were getting your peoples from, academia. That's not really how it works in the real world. That's not how we talk in the real world. How we write often has different things and different goals, I should say, than academics do. That's one reason why we're feeling it. AIs also love to put in adjectives and adverbs if you want something very practical. And a fun thing to try is tell the AI after you use it, reduce the adverbs and adjectives in this by 50% and see what you get. It's actually better. But let me ask you guys, because one thing we've been hearing from clients is, well, I like to put in emails into AI, put in my emails to do tone work, to make me sound less angry with this client, to make me sound like I'm more clear, more direct. How do you guys respond to that?
I wince as someone with a background in communication theory, including all things organizational communication and emotional intelligence and things like that. I think of all of the instances, aside from business, think of the instances in our personal lives. And I discuss this with clients as well, where we in our personal lives put out some kind of written communication in the form of a text, and it's totally misinterpreted because of the punctuation being missing or the wrong emoji. It's nonverbals as well. I mean, how many of us have gotten into arguments over or misunderstandings over information communicated by text because we misinterpreted the tone? And AI is not going to help that because it can't think, it can't feel. It does not have that emotional intelligence. It's what we say when you put something in to an AI tool, you're going to get something very similar back because it is mimicking and digesting what you've put into it. So I think when it comes to tone and emotional intelligence, those elusive EQ skills that we talk about, we cannot rely on AI to do that for us because that's simply not how it works.
It's interesting to me. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say Sarah was right, but we can skip that Sarah was right on part if you want.
I'm okay with that. I could be wrong.
What I was going to say is that opportunity to build emotional intelligence, I think, is important, Sarah. I get writing angry, and maybe I've written an angry email or two in the past, but running it through the AI, they treat it as, hey, calm me down. And I can also understand pulling that emotion out, but you do miss an opportunity to build emotional intelligence. You do miss an opportunity to learn how to do it yourself. And I would also say you miss an opportunity to build memory. Let me explain what I mean by build memory. When we interact with material, engage with material, it becomes part of us more than if it's just generated or outside of us. That AI creates the outside. So if I run my angry email through AI and then copy and paste and I haven't written it, I'm not saying that doesn't do the tone work to make it less angry. It does to some extent. but then I don't necessarily remember what I said. So if I'm interacting with that person later, I better hope that I remember what the AI did, but I didn't write it. So that memory is not really going to be there. Maybe you open the email at that moment. Maybe you don't have the opportunity. It's a gamble, but I think there is an opportunity for tone work. Pam, what are your thoughts?
That is such a great point. So that's true not only with an email, but with any kind of document. If I've got to present something to a client and I've let AI write it, then you're to your point. I've got to know exactly what AI put in there. But so I guess, but the thing about emails to me is sometimes it's okay to send an angry email. And
snap.
Well, it is. I mean, so sometimes, I guess the issue that I run into with emails is this. Everybody wants to start with, hope all is well. Hope this email finds you. It's that same old crap at the very beginning of every email, which is insincere, right? So just cut that out first. But the other thing I run into, especially with women, is they tend to worry too much about tone. I promise you that most of the people who are worried about tone in an email are women and not men. I don't know this, I'm guessing, but just based on my experience, I promise you that that is the case. And so I think one of the problems is that women need to understand it's not about your tone and coming off one way or another. It is about the language you use and how you present the information. Right. So women, and we know this, in emails use please a ton more than men do. Tons. Right. Because if they don't, it's, she's just too direct or too aggressive or whatever the case may be. Men can get away with it. And I'm not trying to make this into a, bash men thing, because that's not what I'm doing.
But she does have a son, for the record. She does have a son.
And a husband and a male dog. So, but I do think that women tend to do this. I had a woman, this was years ago. She was wondering why people did not act upon her email. She was a manager. She was a director, position of leadership. You read her emails and it's like, well, when you get a chance, if you could, these wiggle words and when I spoke to her about it, I'm like, well, you're using too many wiggle words. If you could, when you get a minute, please, that kind of thing. In business, there are no pleases. This is what needs to be done. And this is what it needs to be done by. Yes, I'm very direct, but there's a way to ask those things or to tell people those things that have nothing to do with please and thank you and all that. Thank you in advance and all that stuff. So my point is simply that I think the issue of tone can be misleading in terms of asking AI to do that for you, when the reality is you can do it yourself if you understand what you're trying to do in the email and who you're writing for. So that's all I'm saying about that.
And you can still include some of that tone. One of the things I talk with clients about is when they ask me that very question about, well, I don't want to come across as to this or to this, men and women. I say, well, in an email specifically, try reorganizing, right? Rearranging, put your bottom line up front. Hey, so-and-so, can I get that report by close of business tomorrow? By the way, it was great seeing you at today's meeting. Hope you're having a great afternoon. Best ... Right. You're still putting that tone, but the action item is upfront and direct. Because I've had some folks say culturally for them, they were concerned about tone and sort of things like that. And one woman was very, very concerned because of her cultural background and different things like that. And I've had folks, when I say that, well, just try rearranging it, bottom line up front. And that's that whole starting with the most important information and leading down to information that's less and less and less important, especially in emails, because, if folks want to read the whole thing, great. And if they don't read the whole thing, they've got the action item right up at the top. And it makes it work better for everyone.
I mean, expectations for emails are that they are going to be short and to the point. Not that not you're writing a dissertation. First we climbed out of the primordial soup, and then at the very end you get to whatever the action is.
Right.
So I mean, you have to. I mean, that's part of the whole thing is understanding the purpose of an email and reader expectations for an email. Instead of going on and on and on and on, I hope that they'd find you well and all this junk at the very beginning, to your point, Sarah, but asking or telling or whatever it is first so that the reader knows. Because when you do that, when you tell me exactly what you need right up front, that respects my time as the reader. When you respect my time as the reader, automatically your ethos or image, which we talk about in our workshops, goes up. Because you're not making me waste a bunch of time going through a bunch of junk that I don't care anything about or don't need to know. So when you think about tone isn't just the words you use, to your point. It's also about how you organize. You're setting the tone for the relationship and for the email by putting the information that the reader needs up front and using the subject line effectively, which is another thing we talk about. But so tone's more than words. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
All this information, applying it back to AI. A lot of people may say, but AI can do all of this. It can reorganize it for me. It can pull out those wiggle words if I tell it to. And while I see that point, I would also point out that we've just said a lot of information that is from learned human experiences, such as the relationship you have with the particular person you're writing to. And while AI may get there someday, it certainly is not. And as evidence to this, look at how many jobs there are for AI trainers. And they are paying well. Believe me, I looked and I'm like, that's juicy. Do I have time? No. But if it's so important and they're paying so much and they have so many jobs, that tells me right there you're not where you need to be to replace a human, because you're having to hire so many humans. And then that's assuming humans. That's assuming that all humans think alike. You are basing it on these few humans that come in, and then every human thinks like that, right? No. And while I love Sarah very much, she and I do think differently, believe it or not. And so
Shocking,
we may write things differently. I know. And different is not necessarily wrong.
Right.
And that's something to keep in mind. And that's
we approach things differently. We're different humans. Yeah.
I love that point, because that's one of the things in our workshops. That's one of the reasons we don't teach grammar. We teach people how to take critical thinking and apply it to writing, because my relationship with Sarah is very different from Elizabeth's relationship with Sarah. So if I'm writing to Sarah, it's going to be different than how Elizabeth would write to her. And so that is the thing. I think that one of the things that AI misses, it assumes, to Elizabeth's point, which is a great point, that every human being thinks the same, that your relationship with every single human being that you're writing to is exactly the same. And that's not true. And we all know that's not true. So when you don't have the foundational pieces of understanding who you're writing for and what you're trying to accomplish, and you're using AI, to me, that's a huge misstep. You're potentially missing the boat. Tone or whatever isn't going to matter, because it's just, it's about your image, and it's about the relationship you have with the reader.
Mm-hmm. To your point, the relationship that you have with the reader, the image that you put out there, that goes back to ancient Greece, right? And Aristotle as well, that rhetorical pyramid, the rhetorical triangle, where it's about your credibility as the writer. It's about how well you took your reader's needs into consideration. And it's about the logical flow and organization. And again, there's a reason that we still study these concepts by someone who lived thousands of years ago, right? Because it's human.
And I'm sorry I interrupted. And the other point is, one of the things we know is that how readers read is changing and has changed. And so AI, I don't know, knows that, but so those are some of the things that we focus on, because how readers read is constantly changing, constantly evolving, and it will continue to evolve. And so those are important things to know when you're talking about using a document to do anything, right? So, those are things that only human beings can do.
There's another possible benefit to AI, and I think I might give it to AI on this for just one aspect, and that's overcoming the blank page. Seeing that blank page, that stupid little blinking cursor mocking you, saying, "You're stuck, you got nothing." And the AI can generate a base document, if you will, particularly if it's an internal AI and you've already inputted all your templates, all your documents, it can generate that. Also, if you're, excuse me, I'm just dying over here. If you are a new person to the organization, you're not really sure what to do, new document, it can generate that for you. I experienced that where I had to write a PR package for a separate client and never wrote a PR package before. What does that even look like? I asked the AI and it goes, here. Now, it's still wrong on a lot of things. I go, no, because this client has this particular challenge, I need to change this. So it didn't know everything, even though I inputted all the information I knew about this client, which is separate from Hurley Wright. We don't talk about our clients at Hurley Wright to AIs, just for the record.
Just so you know, yeah.
Just so you know, we sign NDAs. You can sue us into oblivion if we say stuff, so we don't want to be sued into oblivion. But I put all this information in about a client, and it still didn't generate everything that I needed, everything that was right. It wasn't. But it gave me something. What do you guys feel about that? Yeah.
It's a place to start.
It is a place to start. I just think embracing it as though it's the end all be all is the problem. But yeah, I think as a place to start, it can be very effective.
My husband is going back to school after 20 years out of school. And I talked to him about effectively and ethically using ChatGPT as a tool. And as someone who hasn't written papers in 20 years, he had that same experience where it's a blinking cursor, a blank page. Where do I even start? And I said, well, your notes from the reading that you did. Okay, you have those down, you have those in a document. Well, I don't know how to organize them or how to make them all connect. Well, put a couple of those notes into ChatGPT and start thinking about, okay, how do I connect these two? Or what are transition words that can help lead from one to the other? And I said, and again, you're going to hurt yourself if you just copy and paste whatever it comes up with, because one, your professors have things in place to catch that kind of thing. But two, what you're doing is you're using this as a tool to help you learn how you write and learn to write all over again. Now, again, and I've cautioned so many people on this, students that I have worked with at the college age level and things like that, be careful, because putting in content and expecting it to write your work for you is going to hurt you in the short term and in the long run. But using these tools as a way to kind of get your thoughts down on paper and help you see the big picture, kind of like some of the free writing or pre-writing strategies we talk about, mind mapping, for example. Creating a mind map where you can see all of the different directions you could go, and then you can kind of move the pieces around a little bit. And, I use Canva and PowerPoint as a tool for me when I'm working on, like, for example, when I worked on my dissertation, used that to create a mind maps to help me organize all of these concepts so I could move them around. Now, you might say, nope, I should have done that on paper with a pen. Well, I used Canva and PowerPoint as a tool to create a visual to help me critically think about where I was going with this. And I think there is the possibility for that. Now, again, I want to make it very clear. I think that academic integrity is a very, very important part of college life, no matter if you are going back to school as a non-traditional student or if you're in that quote unquote traditional age range. But I think again, orienting your beliefs as a student and as an instructor around this idea of, okay, how can we use this as a tool to teach people to think critically, to get their thoughts down, to write.
I mean, I think part of what you just said, you used Canva or PowerPoint, whatever. And at the end of the day, you still have to make decisions about, like I've used Napkin AI to generate graphics, and I still have to make decisions about whether I feel like those graphics accurately represent what I'm trying to do.
Exactly.
And the same is true if you use AI to generate writing. You should have the tools to be able to make good decisions. And I think that's what a lot of people lack. They don't have the tools. And what I mean by that is, sure, I can say, hey, remove the adjectives and adverbs, but do I have the tools? Do I have the knowledge to know if that results in a more readable document that is actually going to help me accomplish my goal? And that, I think, is the missing piece, is that you still have to have those foundational tools of being able to do a deep dive into who your readers are, being able to reverse engineer the document and understand what it is you're trying to accomplish. So, because you still have to make decisions, even if AI generates the document, you've got to be able to go through it. Does this work? Does this doesn't work for my reader? That kind of thing. It's not just I'm going to write it and, good luck. And then the other thing that we found, of course, and I'm going to, tout Hurley right, is that because our curriculum is based on the principles of readability, we teach people how to make good decisions, because it's not just about rearranging,
Right.
It's about making good decisions to understand what's needed, what's not needed, who your readers are, that kind of thing. Which is another reason that we don't teach grammar in our workshops, because you can be the best grammarian on the planet. It doesn't mean you have a readable document. And again, measuring the success of the document, I'm always astounded. And Elizabeth, you know this with the communication diagnostic that we do. I'm astounded by the number of people, the number of companies we work with who have no clue about whether their documents are working. No clue. They produce them, they put them out there, no idea. Do you know if your clients are coming back to you? Are they, do they have questions? Those kinds of things. Nobody measures that. It's kind of interesting. Go ahead, Sarah.
Well, and going back to my husband writing papers, he had to do a lot of reading. He had to take the notes, right, in order to effectively use that tool. And that kind of backs up what you just said, Pam. You have to do the thinking. You have to do the work. You have to do the pre-writing, the pre-organization, the pre-thinking in order to make it an effective tool. And that goes back to another thing we talk about in our workshops, which is the writing process, the communication process. 80% of that should be planning. 80%.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And how much stress and back and forth is it going to save you in the long run because you planned and used that beautiful brain of yours, those beautiful critical thinking skills, to get all of yourself organized, to do the work ahead of time so that you can sit down and craft effective communication.
Well, and that's it. If more people, and I make this point when I teach a workshop, if you get down, if you nail planning, it's going to be easy to write. But most people refuse to do the planning. They just start writing, and I think that's the appeal of AI, is that I can just stick it in there and it's going to do it, and they don't have to do all the heavy lifting beforehand, which is the point. If you don't plan, you're probably not going to be able to produce an effective document, but people don't want to do that. And then companies don't give people the opportunity to do that either. They pay a lot of lip service to effective writing, but they don't give them the time and space.
And to be clear on what we mean by planning includes research. It includes thinking. It includes interviews. It includes doing the data work, figuring out the different relationships. It's the content. Only 20% is the typity type. That's what we mean by planning. And kind of connecting also to AI, a lot of AIs are adaptive, which means that what you're putting in and what you accept is what the AI learns is, oh, that's what they want. Okay, I'll keep doing that. So if you put crap in, you're going to get crap out. Some of us do tell the AI, no, that was bad, or yes, that was good. But how often are we doing that? And how often do we just go, okay, I'll take it, I'll fix it later? And then we don't tell the AI, good boy. And then the AI is like, I don't know, or no, don't do that. I don't know. So you're kind of teaching it to either be poor or effective just through your own writing skills being put in there. I also want to talk about another aspect of AI because we've talked about some pros, we've talked about some cons. We need to talk about accountability because I think this is going to be a huge thing. There have been some lawsuits happening in the courts. We don't know how this is all going to end up. We do know that for art was one of the first ones to go in there and challenge AI. The art piece must be primarily generated by a human. Most, I think the wording is not primarily, I think it's mostly. Don't know what mostly is. Thank you, courts. But mostly human generated in order to get a copyright. Okay, well, what about writing then? How does that affect things? How does that affect patents, intellectual property? Must the intellectual property be mostly generated by humans in order to get that patent, in order to get that trademark, whatever it is? I think that's the way it's going to go. There have also been some creative writers who sued one of the AI companies. And they did win because they were saying, you can't take my stuff and use it for your gain. I didn't say okay to that. And you have cost me this much money. Well, how does that affect the other AIs where we're using it for other documents? Do you get a part of my pie that I got from my document? Well, what about that person? It's a domino effect. It's messy. I'm not sure how that's going to turn out in the courts. I think it will be where the courts favor humans in that mostly generated aspect. Thoughts, guys?
Well, it's interesting you say that. I heard an interview lately with Elton John, and the courts in England decided that the artists did not have the rights to their own material, that AI could go in and take it and do with it whatever they wanted to. And he was talking about what a horrible thing that was. And the reality is, I mean, his point was what it does is it stifles creativity, because why would I produce something, a song or what music or whatever the case may be? Why would I do that if I don't own it, if it's not mine, and you can just take it and you can create whatever you want to with it? Why would I do that? So it was a very interesting interview. And he was just sickened by it that they had made this decision. And I agree. I mean, if you're a writer, whatever the case may be, you should have the right to control how your material is used.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Oh, that's interesting because I know a lot of companies, if they have the money, they're moving towards closed AIs, which means their stuff doesn't go out. But those that don't have the budget, these kind of smaller businesses, smaller engineering firms that may not have it and they're using AI, that means other engineering firms get to use your property to be your competitor even. That's
I don't know.
messy.
I don't know. Yeah.
Well,
this is in England, so I don't know what the courts are. But to your point, and as I made the point earlier, I don't think we understand the long-term consequences of this thing. We just don't.
You know, it brings up the idea of LinkedIn changing their policy. Because, right? Making it so that unless you deliberately opt out, the content you post can be used to train their AI.
To me, that's theft. I don't care what anybody says, that's theft. Because it should be where you opt in, not where you have to opt out. I would never have known about it, but I happened to see, somebody posted about it. But I think I only saw 2 or 3 people post about it at all, instead of outrage, which to me, it should be outrage, especially for companies. Now, as an individual, fine, whatever. But I think it's a problem that, it's just people. It's to me, it's thievery, it's theft.
It's something that companies are going to have to face, whether they want to or not. And I'm not sure that we're going to be able to give you the exact answer or what the courts will say eventually. I don't know how it works if England says, yeah, it's fine, and America says, no, it's not. I don't know.
How does that
They don't
work?
pay me for that. What I also want to address is the idea of accountability, just in our, take it from the global and go down to our smaller worlds. We have to be accountable for what we put out into the world, especially if it's something so impactful as in the pharmaceutical world. You have to be, this is where this error came from. This is how we fix it. Can you imagine a deviation coming from an AI and you've got to go track it down? Oh my goodness, what a mess.
Yeah, I agree.
We have to think about what accountability we want to have, what level. Now, in light of all of this, let's say our listeners go, I still want to try AI, and there are some benefits, and you've told me all the possible pitfalls. For those embarking on this and wanting to use AI, what are some guidelines you would give them?
Are we talking about individuals? Are we talking about companies? What are we?
Companies.
Well, again, I think if a company wants to use AI, I mean, we have one client, as you know, the CEO is all about it. When I asked our point of contact, why is the CEO all about it? What's the use case for it? No answer. They don't know. He said, I just told my engineers garbage in, garbage out. So there's this push to get the engineers to use it, but nobody knows why they're using it. Is it fear of missing out? Is it, I don't know. So I think if you're going to use AI, you have to know why you're using it. What is it you're looking for? And then you have to be able to measure its success. So if we're using it so that we can win more proposals, super. You have to measure if you're actually winning more proposals based on the use of AI. So you have to know the why, you have to know the how, you have to measure whether it's in fact resulting in wins.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's fairly simple. And I don't know that most companies, it's again, faster. We can put out more proposals. Well, great. Putting out more proposals doesn't necessarily mean more wins. So why, how, and success.
It's interesting you said that, Pam, because MIT came out with a study, I think it was this year, in fact, just a couple months ago, that said 95% of companies that purchased or invested in AI for their teams, 95% of them did not see a rate of return on that.
Yep.
And boy, the stock market crashed on those AI stocks when that happened. And we look at it, if you read more deeply into it, why? Well, it's because people didn't know how to use the AI. So it kind of sit there, or maybe they use it every now and then for something, but they didn't know how to. They weren't trained to, or the training was poor. We've heard a lot of different trainings. LinkedIn Learning, self-paced. Coursera, self-paced. People don't really do self-paced because we want to do other fun things with our lives, or we don't have time already. We're bogged down. Another aspect is the training is not where it needs to be. It's one of those boxed ones. Here, everybody use AI the same way. Well, does that really answer your problem? What you want? What you're doing? No. The AI training has to be effective for your people, your organization.
Right.
And I think that also figuring out what kind of AI training you need, figuring out how do we measure success, not just in AI, but in our documents as well. That kind of speaks to what we offer at Hurley, right? The communication diagnostic. Pam, you mentioned it earlier, but let's explain it a little bit more. Pam, will you explain the diagnostic while I take a sip of water so I don't die?
Sure, yeah. So the diagnostic is we come into your organization, any organization, we look at your documents, we look at your review process, your writing process, reviewer comments, we look at your tools, we look at the entire writing review ecosystem. So what a lot of companies don't understand is that writing and reviewing, the tools you have is an ecosystem. The call we get is, oh, my team can't write. okay, maybe, but maybe it's the reviewers, maybe it's the tools. So what we found in the diagnostic for a lot of our clients is it's a lot more than just the writers. You can upskill your writers, cool, but a lot of times there's a lot more involved than that. And that's what we do. That's what we find out. It's a 30-day project. And we find out in 30 days, present the results to you. You can do with whatever you wish with the results. But that's what it is. And we found it to be incredibly successful. We've had a couple clients that have saved thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars and multiple hours of time reviewing and writing based on our recommendations in the diagnostic. So it's a great tool. And Elizabeth is the manager of our communication diagnostic and does a phenomenal job.
And what's also awesome about that is I'm a nerd. And don't you want a nerd to go and figure out what's wrong? To nerd out on your writing and say, well, I feel like this is wordy. Why is it wordy? Because you have this sentence structure and they're doing this and this. I told you, I'm a nerd. I like linguistics. I know how to map all these sentence structures. When Pam first came with this idea to me, it's like, I get to release the full nerd. Yes, please. And what we also do is we talk with your people and we do it in anonymized sessions. That way there's no fear of repercussions and we get the truth. Here's what's happening. And we did one today, in fact, where we could show, here's what your writers are saying about when they feel this process is done. Here's what your reviewers are saying. Notice how they don't match at all. Why? Well, because this tool is off. This tool is off. So it's getting to the root cause. Oh, my deviation people, you're going to love this one. It's getting to the deviation, the root cause of that deviation, and then what corrective actions do we do and why? I do love a good deviation.
There's another one that Sarah had where she was talking to a client and the writers had no idea what leadership wanted. The leadership could not communicate clearly about their needs, what their expectations, anything like that. And the leaders thought everything was cool. Everything's great. Everything's fine. And so what often happens is you have it's like the ducks, the ducks, everything on the surface looks fine. And then below, people are paddling furiously. So there's that. And that's part of what the diagnostic does is it kind of, to Elizabeth's point, helps you understand, you're probably missing things. There's probably things your writers and reviewers may not be telling you that we uncover and we can show you how to fix those, how to fix those issues in the diagnostic. Because there's typically a lot going on. Go ahead, Sarah.
Oh, yeah.
I think that brings up the point that doesn't mean anything's necessarily wrong with your team or your organization. It means you're humans, and we really want to partner with you to help you understand ramping up those writing and communication skills so that there is communication flowing and so that leadership is aware of what the teams need. Because I think a lot of leaders genuinely want to see their team succeed. One, they're not aware of problems, and two, they're not even sure how to go about that. And so one of the things we often share is with clients is we want to help empower you and your team, your leadership, your teams, your reviewers, your writers, by giving you these tools, giving you these skills, teaching you. It's the old adage, you can give someone a fish versus teaching them to fish, right? When you teach someone to fish, it's going to solve a lot of long-term issues and, ultimately make things better for your company, for everybody involved, which means you're going to be more successful.
You know what else we've had?
I was just going to say AI can't do a communication diagnostic. No way.
Right.
No way.
No, it'll overheat. No.
We can help you right in the diagnostic figure out how to use AI if we feel like you need it, but AI cannot do a diagnostic for you.
True.
Right.
True.
And first of all, Pam, I'm glad you explained the duck thing because I'm like, duck? What? What is it? With the
I
little
was thinking
feet going
ducks in a
under.
row.
No.
I didn't know where that was going. What we've also had with the diagnostic is we've had managers come to us, supervisors, and they go, I know this is going on. I know this problem's going on. I don't have evidence for it. Therefore, I cannot get support from leadership to fix it. Go find evidence for it if it actually exists, or tell me it doesn't. And so it's great to be able to partner with managers and say, hey, that problem did exist. Here's why it's happening, and give them the evidence so they can do their jobs more effectively, or to tell the managers, there's a problem. It's not that. It's this. And here's
Those
why.
blind
And they go,
spots.
oh, yeah, those blind spots. That's why I need to change this. Okay. So it's nice to be a partner to give people actual evidence, because you can quantify writing. You can study it under a microscope, much to the chagrin of academia. You can. What we also have at Hurley Wright is, because we see everyone wanting the AI but not using it effectively, we offer the AI training. You've heard how much of AI nerds and researchers we are right now. We do a lot because we don't have hobbies, so this is what we go and look at. What we also offer now is our own AI, which is named Pam, after our founder and leader. And while she can't be replaced by an AI, what this AI does is it works in tandem with our workshops. So your people don't forget what they were taught. They still get that continuous exposure. And they have an AI partner that works with them to make them better, rather than something you have to train.
Right. And it's a closed system. Yeah.
Anything else to add on Pam?
No, I mean, we've gotten, demoed it several times and have a lot of clients who are very excited about it, but it reinforces the things we teach in our workshops, the readability concepts. So it's not ChatGPT, it's not Copilot. It's really focused on, okay. And then it reminds your team of the concept. So it's this continual learning kind of thing.
So think of it as a learning buddy rather than a human replacement.
Good. I like that.
A learning buddy. I like that.
A learning buddy. That's our take on AI, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Thank you for joining us today. May your week be filled with good health and good writing.